Let's start with risks. And I'm gonna read a quote that I pulled from one of your blogs. I thought it was very good, and then use a piece of it to reference risks. The quote is, "A divinary practice is really a resetting of your understanding that you are existing and making power plays within a larger framework of other agencies making similar power plays. And some of them are non-human, non-worldly. It humbles you, making you aware of how huge forces interact with your life, while also informing you of how to best sail those winds." So the risk question is a general one, like what are some of the risks that we might experience using these divination practices in regards to our psychedelic experiences? And the other of which is, if we are consciously utilizing a practice such as tarot, or we'll say tarot while we're on it, but perhaps astrology as well. Astrology seems to be more like a mapping and a tracking, and the tarot is an active engagement, with the energies. Are we opening ourselves up to these non-human, non-worldly other agencies in a way that could pose us harm? And although it doesn't get talked a lot here, and it's a bit of a foul thing to talk about in the larger psychedelic renaissance right now because of the sort of like belief system we're trying to set up to integrate psychedelics into the mainstream. But there is, at the very least, experience of other entities that do not, have your best interest or safety in mind that can be encountered. So the risks are, the risk question is generally, what are some of the risks? And the other one is like, are we setting ourselves up to possibly be harmed by opening up in our minds and in our space, engagement with other agents, otherworldly agents that might pose to do us harm?
Right. Yeah. And so that is very inconvenient for the medical model that we have and that we're using to roll these out currently. Because it presupposes an animistic universe, one that includes all types of things we can't see or know using the left brain. But yeah, man, I don't think that, look, psychedelics are dangerous. They're dangerous. They are not a panacea. They are not going to solve your problems. They're none of those things. They are alive. They're mysterious. They are forces that we have to tangle with, sometimes bargain with, be very humble around, have sovereignty around, have some kind of agency, which can be hard won through years of just personal practice of other types of things. I find meditation extremely helpful for being able to stay centered in those places. But of course, there's risks. There's risks from a physiological level, from a just purely psychological level, especially if you have already, you talk about these things, if you are presupposed to schizophrenic tendencies, etc., right? But from a point of view of entities or a magical view, yeah. I don't know if you've ever had the experience of being in that space and needing to be like, if there's something, you might feel like something might be coming in or it's around, and you just be like, this is not happening right now. Like you are not coming into this space right now.
I have had to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's a thing. It's a thing.
And whether or not that was a thing in just my mind, or whether or not that was a thing that was me really interacting with some sort of like, non-physical entity, it was a thing experientially. And so, yeah.
That's good enough for me, man.
Yeah.
That's good enough for me. So that's part of, I guess, my position around when I say psychedelics are dangerous. I just feel like this culture, especially psychedelic culture right now, take these things extremely lightly. Like entities. Like, are you crazy? Like, I don't know. I think the importance of having a relationship with what might be called, your allies, if you tend toward that way of thinking, if you tend toward just, a higher power, a higher agency, whatever it is you have that helps you to strengthen your boundaries. I think it's important. And that takes us out of the realm of divination. I feel like I've never felt like some external force has the power necessarily to mess with my way of interpreting 3 cards in a tarot spread around something. Maybe I'm misled, but I also have a lot of experience with having seen these things work for me. So it's hard for me to believe that I've been misled, right, around that. I think it's more the psychedelic space where we have to be really cautious and humble around because, yeah, I think those risks are inherent in the space. I don't necessarily think that it's just rampant, right? Like, I don't think most people are going in there and having those types of things where you're like, here's the boundary, you're not coming in here. But you need to be able to do that. If you don't have the confidence in yourself to do that, or you're around somebody who can't, who can similarly feel those as possibilities, then you are in the Wild West. Like, you just are. So take necessary precautions, I think, or have that confidence within you that you can create those boundaries.
And this is the burden of proof would be on me to make this claim anyways. But I'm just thinking about the argument of like, just because you don't believe in Jesus doesn't mean he's not there. But it's something like, just because you haven't experienced these entities, or for example, experienced direct communication with the spirit of the plant that you're consuming, or sort of like the intelligence of the substance the intelligence that you're experiencing through the substance, whatever it is, doesn't necessarily mean that they're not there. It might just mean that whatever it is that you've come in with has obfuscated your capacity to recognize it as such. And so that's something I hang on to. And also maybe the fact that I think that is creating something that's just out of my own head. So I hang on that too, but I also sort of lean in. It's a pretty safe bet to conduct myself as if this reverence and safety and security and, to some extent, discipline and respect and trust and cultivating relationship and allyship, to lean into all of those things are valuable. All of those things are a good idea. All of those things are likely going to serve me for the better, regardless of whether or not it's real.
Yeah. Yeah. And that applies again to the divination, that applies to astrology. If you know some astrology and you willingly choose a time where it looks more rough, it looks more tough, and you're like, well, I'll just deal with it, then it's play at your own risk, right? Whereas if you choose a time that has sort of been backed up by your divination and maybe by the astrology, you're more likely to have a smoother trip where those types of things are not in there, where you don't have to assert boundaries, where you don't have to be like doing double duty. You're trying to be in the experience and also like hold your circle around you or whatever it is, right? I think the bottom line of it all, James, is just radical humility. Like, we do not have any freaking clue what is going on when we go into that space. Like, we need to be just travelers in an unknown land. That's what we are, right? And with that type of attitude, I think that it brings enough caution, and also like this sort of humility seems to be sort of treated a little bit better than bravado, or a sort of sense of, oh, I'm not going to pay attention to those things. Like, it's just some mushrooms. Whatever.
Well, bravado usually gets you spanked.
Always.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I think of it is not like I don't have a clue. It's more like I have a pretty good sense of something, and I've got some maps, I've got some models, I've got some dynamics pre-established, and whatever it is I'm encountering isn't necessarily going to be explained by all of that. And at the very least, it is beyond all of that too. And that even with all of those things, the likelihood that even all those models and maps and developed perspectives and all the rest are going to be undone by the mystery is still there, you know? And so it's like, yep, I've got all these things and these tools and all the rest. And there's a chance that none of them will actually mean anything once I'm in there. And I need to be ready for that too.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So the risks are there, and also, like you're saying, we have tools, we have ways of equipping us a little bit to go into that space.